Hi, I was recently asked about the descend via command in ATC Pro and how to use it in the Atlanta sector. To understand what happens in the game, I think we need a bit of background real-world information. Now, since I'm neither an ATC nor a pilot, I might have gotten a lot of things wrong when trying to wrap my head around things. Don't take what I say as an absolute truth. I'm just a happy nerd and a desktop ATC wannabe. In the background, you see the Atlanta Falcon feeder sector, aka L, running with an east flow. As a controller of sector L, your job is to descend aircraft coming in via the waypoint Dirty and Evil and make sure they are spaced so that the controller of North Finals, aka V, will have an easy job providing final vectors and getting the aircraft onto the localizer. I'm gonna remove all maps except for the altitude restrictions of your airspace now. When the aircraft first enter your sector, they will do so at about 14,000 feet. You own the airspace between 11,000 and 14,000. Get them down towards 11,000 as soon as possible. If you have two arrivals entering that aren't spaced enough yet, you can descend the first to 11,000 and have the following aircraft towards 12,000 and start working on a plan how to separate them laterally. This could be done by assigning the second aircraft a lower speed. Once they are laterally separated, descend the second aircraft as well towards 11,000. Once the plane enters the next part of your arrival corridor, you own the airspace between 7,000 and 14,000. Go ahead and descend them towards 7,000. Same as before, if they are still too close to each other laterally, you can have one on 7,000 and the next one on 8,000. In the next section after that, the corridor is between 7,000 and 12,000 feet. So at this point, no aircraft can be left at the original 14,000 feet or you will be in trouble with the instructor and getting dinged. Strive to keep your aircraft as low as possible during your descent instructions, but make sure to keep them separated vertically if they aren't yet separated laterally. In the last part of the arrival corridor, the limit are 6 to 11,000. Beneath this part of our sector is sector V. It starts at 5,000. You help the controller of sector V by getting your arrivals down to 6,000 as soon as possible and initiating a handoff as early as possible. This will give V as much time as possible to decide when to turn the aircraft towards the runway. Okay, it's time to look at some star charts. We're going to start off by looking at one of the Albuquerque arrivals. You will understand why I chose this map instead of an Atlanta map in just a bit. I was too lazy to look up the real pronunciations of the waypoints here, so I'm just gonna read them the way that seems logical to me as a Swedish person with a bit of broken English. Imagine an aircraft coming in from Reckon, passing Satox. When we get to Snoop, that sounds funny, there is a note about altitude and speed restrictions. The altitude at Snoop should be between flight level 200 and flight level 280, and the speed should be exactly 270 knots. When the aircraft cross the waypoint Coulter, the altitude should be between flight level 180 and 14,000 feet. At Taco, the altitude should be exactly 10,000 feet and the indicated airspeed 210 knots. These altitudes, however, I'm almost certain has to do with technical requirements. The waypoints may be a mix of GPS positions and radio beacons and whatnot. And over here, for example, if you would be below 8,200, you wouldn't be guaranteed that the signal would reach your plane. So again, these are altitudes to follow for the approach, while these are just information about when this procedure would be likely to stop working. Real-world phraseology have two very different ways to use this star. One is descend via, the Coulter-free arrival, and what that means is for the pilot to follow this star in its entirety, following the path and obeying the altitude restrictions. Another real-world command is join the coulter free arrival, and this tells the pilot to follow the path of the star but ignore the altitudes. So this way the ATC controller would manually issue altitude assignments to the pilot. If you listen in on real ATC traffic for Albuquerque on liveatc.net, you will often hear ATC issuing a third version, descend via except maintain 4000. This will have the pilot follow both the path and the altitude in the beginning, but then stay at 14,000 and ignore the published altitudes from there on. Descend via is an excellent way to reduce radio traffic in a sector like Albuquerque. Instead of issuing 3 separate commands for descents, you give the pilot one command and he will then descend himself. Very convenient. Okay, now it's time to look at the Atlanta star, or one of the Atlanta stars. Notice that the pilot is supposed to expect altitudes, but that there are no altitudes published if you're heading this way. There are technical reasons altitudes, but none that the pilot should follow when descending via. Now, this makes sense, because why would an Atlanta controller want a pilot to descend on his own? The airspace is very congested, so the pilot descending on their own would without doubt cause conflict alerts all the time. Also, the dirty arrival converges with the evil arrival here. If they were both on a descend via, they would risk ending up at gas at the same time and on the same altitude. Okay, that was a lot of talking just to get to this short point. In real life, controllers in Atlanta would use join the arrival, not descend via. However, in ATC Pro Simulator, the only way to get an aircraft to follow the path with a runway transition is to issue descend via command. Now, the way they made the waypoints for the dirty arrival, descend via will have the pilot starting a descent towards 5,000 feet. So in the game, the command descend via the dirty to arrival runway 9 left transition will get the plane on the path, but it will also instruct the pilot to start a descent towards 5,000 feet. And this wouldn't happen in real life. I believe there are even stars in ATC Pro where the pilots try to descend all the way down to 0 feet, crashing to the ground. This is not a great concept for safe landings. Luckily, there's a way to make pilots stop following published altitudes and just follow the path, much like the real world's descend via except maintain. This is by first issuing descend via the dirty to arrival runway 9 left transition, and once the pilot is doing that, you issue an altitude to descend to, like descend and maintain 1000. But you can't issue the descent until the aircraft is in your airspace. And this is hard. I mean, this is frustrating hard to accomplish. If you're running both sector L and V as a combo, there's much going on that needs good timing, so at least I find it difficult to remember to issue a descent to 1000 in time before the pilot bursts out of your airspace towards 5000 and create a ding. This is why I would recommend anyone as forgetful as myself to modify the star in the database. Remove the waypoint that has an altitude restriction of 5000 and instead make sure the waypoint dirty have a restriction of an altitude between 11,000 and 14,000. With such an edit, you have kind of changed the meaning of descend via the arrival into join the arrival for that particular star. Descend via for the coulter arrival in Albuquerque will still be a descend via, but a descend via for the dirty to in Atlanta will correspond more to a join command. If you're wondering how to edit waypoints in the database, check out Andrew's virtual channel on the topic. A link to a video when he talks about this will be found in the description down below. But if you dislike the idea of editing an SQL database, just go for the solution of descend via followed by descend and maintain 1000. Let's end this video with an example of how the game can work without database edits.
Atlanta approach, good morning, Delta 2583 at 4000 at 270. We have Echo.
Delta 2583, descend via the dirty 2 arrival, runway 8 left transition.
Join the 32 departure, Delta 2583.
Delta 2583, descend via the dirty 2 arrival, runway 8 left transition.
Descend by 32, Delta 2583.
Delta 2583, descend and maintain 1000.
1000, Delta 2583.
Atlanta approach, good morning, Delta 2853 at 4000. We have Echo.
Delta 2853, descend via the dirty 2 arrival, runway 8 left transition.
Descent by 32, Delta 2853.
Delta 2853, descend and maintain 11,000.
Descend and maintain 11,000 Delta 2853.
Atlanta approach. Good morning. Delta 872 level at 14,270 knots assigned. We have echo.
Delta 872, descend via the Dirty 2 arrival, runway 8 left transition.
Descend by 32 Delta 872.
Atlanta approach, good morning, Delta 1193, level at 14,000 assigned 270 knots.
Airport, insight Delta 2583.
Delta 1193, descend via the Dirty 2 arrival, runway 8 left transition.
Descend by 32 Delta 1193.
Delta 2583, descend and maintain 7,000.
7,000 Delta 2583.
Delta 872, descend and maintain 11,000.
Descending to 11,000 Delta 872.
Delta 1193, descend and maintain 11,000.
Descending to 11,000 Delta 1193.
Delta 2583, descend and maintain 6000.
Descend and maintain 6000, Delta 2583.
Delta 2583, contact Atlanta approach on 127.25.
Atlanta approach Delta 1222 level at 14,000. We have echo.
Atlanta approach on 127.25 CR, Delta 2583.